Hey guys, it's time for another chainsaw episode here at the Mountain Garden, and today I'm going to be talking about my 535i XP and how it's held up over about a year of use. I've got to say that this has very quickly become one of my favorite chainsaws, and because of how good this 535i has been, I decided to upgrade to a 540i. So if you want to know about this saw, how it compares to the 535i, or how it compares to a 40cc gasoline chainsaw like this Echo CS400 or the Husqvarna 543 XP gasoline chainsaw, be sure and stay tuned for that episode. But in here, we're going to talk about just this guy right here. Now, the reason I ended up with this 535i XP is because I had such good luck with a DeWalt cordless chainsaw, a battery-powered one, and I wanted something that was a little bit sturdier, a little bit more durable. And if I go in for a closer look, you can see some of the nicer features on this particular saw. The biggest one for me was the metal chain catch right down here. That's something that we don't see in the DeWalt saws. For some reason, they use a plastic chain catch and it really starts to wear. The other thing is the retention mechanism for the bar itself. It's definitely a lot sturdier in this saw. If I use a scrunch here to take this cover off, you'll notice that we have a retained nut right there. That's a nice feature so that we don't lose that when you're servicing things out in the forest. Now, the sprocket back here is not the most robust sprocket. It's definitely not as robust as some of Husqvarna's more expensive saws or professional saws, but you'll notice that when I take this off, that we have two metal posts right here to retain that bar. And in the DeWalt saws and other less expensive battery-powered saws, the retention mechanisms are entirely plastic. Now, we do have a little plastic dot right there at the front that could wear over time, but because this post and this post are so nice and rigid, I've actually noticed that we have no wear at all on that post. And if you take a look at some of my DeWalt saws over time, the bar starts getting really flippy-floppy, especially if you're doing a lot of undercutting, and that's something that has not happened with this saw just because of the way this bar is retained. You can really see it here that the bar is retained quite well between these three positions. Now, not everything is perfect. My biggest complaint about this saw is that we have the bar tensioning mechanism right here on the cover, not on the body of the saw. And as a result, it doesn't tension as well as some of Husqvarna's other saws, some of the more big boy saws, I guess you could say, and we only have one scrunch nut. The one scrunch nut means that over time, the bar tends to get a little bit loose, and if the cover tends to get a little loose, you can see it moves back and forth right like that. The tensioning mechanism will eventually back away a little bit if this is allowed to flex, and then the chain will become loose. It's more likely to come off and end up needing that chain catch right down there, and that can be a pain out when you're really deep in the forest. The other thing I noticed is that we don't have an air filter over here for the motor in the 535i. That's something that I didn't contemplate at all until I got the new 540 over here, and you can see that it does have a filter screen. It's removable and cleanable, and it helps keep dust and debris from getting in there in the motor. And that's important because not only does that cool the motor, but you can see the little vents right in here, in that area right there. That helps cool the battery in the 535. That's one of the differences between these saws and some of the less expensive, more consumer type saws, is that the battery is air cooled along with the motor. Let's talk about batteries now. I suspect a lot of folks are going to be getting single batteries like this. This is the BLI 200 or the larger BLI 300. The BLI 300 is going to give you not only greater capacity, so more cuts out of the battery, but also is going to have greater heat rejection. As with electric vehicles, the bigger the battery means you can dissipate more power over a longer period of time, and each individual cell doesn't heat up quite as much, so you won't have the battery overheating. Now, an interesting design with these Husqvarna saws is you can see that we have sort of a donut shape right here in the middle. This is where the battery goes, and that's because the batteries come in different lengths. You can see the BLI 200 and 300 right here. One is definitely longer or taller than the other, depending on what you want to call that. And this design allows them to be balanced in the saw. So when you install the larger battery in this saw, you'll notice it sticks out on both sides, sort of like Princess Leia's ear buns there, and that means that we have a very good weight balance on the saw. So if I hold the saw right there in the middle, you can see it's not tweaking to one side. Now, it's certainly going to be heavier with the BLI 300, so personally, if I were going to use a battery like this, I would rather have two of these smaller batteries rather than just one of the larger batteries. You can see that the BLI 200 doesn't stick out quite that much. It sticks out a little bit from this side, and it's flush right there. That's because the center of gravity in that battery is exactly where it should be. But there is something else interesting, and that's this guy right here with a cord coming out of it. This is the battery backpack module. This is compatible with pretty much every Husqvarna saw that can use this BLI series of batteries. It slots right there into the saw. You can see it's flush over there on that side too. And then it connects to this much bigger battery right here. This is the BLI 550X, and as you can see, it's definitely gotten a lot of use over the last year. This battery is the ultimate battery. If you're out clearing land or doing a lot of tree cutting or limbing or that sort of thing, it puts the weight not only on your back, which is going to be an awful lot more convenient, but it also has a much larger capacity and again, greater heat dissipation abilities. Like the other batteries, this one is air-cooled, but obviously has its own internal fan in order to keep it cool. And the bigger batteries are going to be needed if you are going to upgrade into the 540i from the 535i. So if you have multiple chainsaws around, keep in mind the power requirements of each individual saw. Supposedly you just won't get as much oomph out of the BLI 200 right here in the bigger saw. Once you get comfortable with the saw and its capabilities and exactly how hard you can press on it, because of course the chain will bind, it's not the most powerful electric motor in this 535i right here, it is possible to overheat the saw, and we've done that a few times, only it's really going to require the battery backpack, because once you've used about 60 to 65% of this battery backpack, if you've just been sawing and sawing and sawing and sawing away, then you'll get a little error light on the handle that indicates that you have overheated the saw. You can help stall that a little bit if you use the eco button. You'll see that right there on the handle as well. And if you engage the eco mode, then it's going to heat up a little bit less. Now, one of the things that I dislike about this Husqvarna saw is the timeout. It will automatically turn itself off after a period of inactivity, and I think that that is just a little bit too quick. It's not something that you can change on this particular saw. And a lot of the other consumer grade saws, they're just on. You stick a battery in it, you pull the handle, and away it goes. For safety reasons with this saw, you have to actually turn it on first. So you press this little button, you have to wait till the green light lights up. I can show you that right here. Go ahead and stuff a battery in here. This battery is full. Go ahead and press the button. Now we have a green light illuminated there. I can then press the eco button, and then you'll notice we have a flashing light on it too. That's because we have that chain brake on. That tells you that there's something wrong, either the chain brake or overheating, etc. And now we can run the saw. But if I were to set this down, move some limbs around, walk away for a while, then it would turn itself off again. Performance of the 535i is excellent. I'll just go ahead and drop a clip in here from the first review. That hasn't really changed over my time with this saw. I really like this one. Now to the downside. Price is obviously the big downside, and that continues to be the case for the 535i XP. This is going to be more expensive than the average approximately 40cc gasoline saw, like this big boy right here, the 543. And this is going to have an awful lot more power than that 535i. It's going to be running a bigger chain. This is a 325 chain. It's going to be a little bit easier to find. It's going to last a little bit longer than some of those narrow chains as well. But this guy is heavier. Something like this, a 40cc average saw, whether we're talking about that, or something like an Echo CS400 right here, they are going to be an awful lot heavier than this saw. And that's one of the reasons that this has become such a favorite. It's lightweight, it's easy to use, and most of the time we do not use the battery here. We use the backpack battery because that makes this handle incredibly light. The gasoline equivalent to this weight would be something like a really lightweight gasoline arborist saw, and those aren't going to have too much more power than this either. But price, again, is the problem, because not only is this saw combination with this small battery definitely more expensive than a gasoline saw, if you want this battery backpack, and trust me, I think you do, then that's going to bring the price tag of this combination up over $1,200. And that is definitely steep. You could buy 2 gasoline chainsaws of really good quality for the price of this combination. So I would say this is going to be restricted to the people that are just really dedicated to their craft, that are really interested in a lightweight saw. And that's exactly what I was interested in. I wanted a saw that I could use in land clearing or in limbing, or once the tree is down, to be right there next to my chipper all day long and not have that weight, that tiredness that you get after chainsawing all day. And that is exactly what I ended up with. But again, not quite as powerful as I might have wanted, and that's why I bought the 540. So for that video, be sure and hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen. That one's going to be coming up very soon. Bottom line, I love the 535i, but it is a very specific customer that this is going to be for. Definitely keep that in mind. I'll see all of you later.